began to speak, but her voice faltered slightly under the weight of the room. This meeting is regarding recent interview conduct and the assessment protocols currently in place. Devon and Elaine exchanged a quick glance, the kind that lasts less than a second but says everything. Julian's expression didn't shift. He simply gestured for Rosa to continue. She took a breath and adjusted her glasses. In light of a recent interview, conducted yesterday morning, we've reviewed footage and audio from the observation system installed on the 10th floor. The behavior displayed during that interview did not meet this organization's professional or ethical standards. Elaine leaned forward slightly, brow furrowing. Are we talking about the woman who came in for the senior marketing strategist role? Yes, Rosa said. Renee Carson. Devon scoffed, barely audible. There was a mix-up. The position had already been filled. We were just— You were dismissive, Julian said, his voice steady, not raised but impossible to talk over. You questioned her qualifications. Without merit. You made assumptions based on what exactly? Her confidence? Her age? Her presence? Elaine opened her mouth, but Martin, the second HR director, cut in gently. We've reviewed the tone and language used throughout that interview. This isn't about a position being filled. It's about how someone was treated while representing this firm. Devon's jaw tightened. No one gave us any indication she was a candidate, Julian replied calmly. That's all she needed to be. Qualified, experienced, professional. That should have been enough. Elaine glanced again at Devon, then back at Julian. We were told nothing about her background. No heads up. That's the point, Julian said. I didn't want to give you one, Rosa continued. There's a consistent pattern in our internal review. Hiring decisions that don't reflect the full pool of qualified applicants. Biased assumptions, subtle gatekeeping. Elaine finally leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. So what? We're being scapegoated? No, Julian said evenly. You're being held accountable. The room grew heavy with silence again. Julian's gaze moved slowly from one face to the other. I asked her to come in because I wanted to know what kind of team I inherited. Now I do. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small folder, slid it across the table to Martin. Effective immediately, I want a full audit of our candidate screening process. Anonymous interviews reviewed by a neutral panel. I want bias training, not the check-a-box kind. I want names of every candidate who was passed over with similar credentials. We reach out. Personally. Devon leaned forward. Julian, with all due respect, this feels— Devon, Julian said, and that was enough. The tone, final, no room left. Elaine's face was hard to read now, caught somewhere between defiance and concern. And what about her? She asked, finally. Is she coming back? That depends on her, Julian said. But the opportunity you both missed? That doesn't. The meeting wrapped without further comment. Julian left the room first. No grand exit, just a quiet pull of the door and the soft echo of his footsteps down the corridor. Behind him, no one moved for a long time. Elsewhere in the building, Renee sat on a bench near the reflecting pool just outside the entrance. The sky had cleared now, morning haze gone. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Julian. Office cleared. Want to come take a walk? She looked up. Through the tall windows, she could just make out the motion of people moving inside, fast, distracted, nervous. Change had a sound to it, and it was echoing through those hallways now. She stood, smoothed her blazer again, and exhaled. Inside, Rosa was already drafting new interview protocols. Down the hall, a junior associate quietly forwarded a copy of Renee's resume to another department head, this time with a note that read, "You should take a serious look at this one." In HR, Martin Cross began setting up interviews with past candidates who had never received a callback. And in a small conference room just off the main board floor, Leanne was building a new database. One that didn't erase the resumes that didn't fit the mold. Outside, Renee stepped toward the revolving glass door, not with hesitation, but with a slow, steady assurance. She'd walked into the building earlier that morning with every reason to belong. Now, everyone else would finally see that too. A stack of papers landed on the conference table with a soft thud. Transcripts from this morning's candidate interviews. Julian flipped through the pages with an unreadable expression before finally speaking. These are notes from today's 10 o'clock meeting with Renee Carson. Devon frowned. Wait, wasn't that meeting canceled? Elaine narrowed her eyes. I thought she withdrew. No, Rosa replied, her voice measured but clear. The interview took place. It was recorded and reviewed as part of our updated hiring compliance protocol. Devon's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Elaine shifted in her chair, suddenly aware of how quiet the room had become. Are we being accused of something? Elaine asked carefully. No, Rosa answered. You're being given the chance to explain. Julian took a step forward, placing the file in front of them. You were assigned to assess a highly qualified candidate. Not only did she meet every listed requirement, she exceeded several. Yet the interview lasted less than 10 minutes. Instead of exploring her strengths, you asked if she had mistakenly applied to the wrong position, and then informed her the role had already been filled. Devon swallowed hard. An internal candidate showed up late. We didn't expect that when the 10 o'clock slot began. Julian looked to Elaine. She sat straighter, trying to maintain control. With respect, she didn't seem like the right fit. Her resume had gaps, and her experience was, well, inconsistent. Her resume clearly noted a 2-year leave to care for a dying parent. Julian interrupted, his tone unchanging. That's not a red flag. That's transparency. Neither of them responded. Julian took a breath, then asked, What didn't you see? Or rather, what did you see that made you decide she wasn't worth your time? Elaine's lips parted, but no words followed. She looked down at the table. That's what I thought, Julian murmured. Devon's face flushed red. Look, it wasn't intentional. We didn't mean to harm her, Julian finished calmly. It was a misjudgment. Devon nodded quickly. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes these things just happen. Julian didn't raise his voice. To who? Silence stretched between them. He straightened. Here's what's happening next. An external audit of your department's entire hiring record is already underway. Every candidate you overlooked, every person you brought on board, all of it. And when the leadership announcement goes public next week, neither of your names will be on it. Elaine's head snapped up. Wait, what? That's not fair. This isn't about fairness, Julian said. It's about systems. And I don't have time for excuses dressed up as explanations. No one in the room spoke after that. But across the building, one woman had already walked back through the front doors. Renee Carson's heels struck the lobby floor with quiet certainty. No receptionist looked up this time, no whispering, no sideways glances. A man in a tailored gray suit approached her as the elevator doors opened. Miss Carson? He asked with simple courtesy. She nodded. Yes. Right this way, Mr. Mars is expecting you. They walked together through a corridor she hadn't seen before, walls lined with accolades, client commendations, and framed partnerships. The energy here was different, not colder, not corporate, just clearer. Like something important lived in the air. They reached a glass-walled room with a view of the skyline. Inside, Julian rose to greet her. His expression was soft, unreadable, searching. Renee met his eyes. No smile, but a flicker of something steady. She was ready. He gestured toward the others seated at the long table, 3 senior execs, a legal advisor, and Rosa from HR. I'd like to introduce Renee Carson, Julian began, a strategic marketing expert with over 15 years of impact-driven success. Until this morning, she was told she wasn't the right fit for the very role she helped us define. Renee stepped forward, voice calm. "Let me be clear," she said. "I didn't apply here hoping someone would see my worth. I know what I bring. I don't need approval. I need opportunity." Rosa gave a small nod. One of the execs scribbled something in their notebook. "I paused my career to care for my father," Renee continued. "And I don't apologize for it. What I won't accept is being reduced to a line item and thrown aside." She turned slightly toward the legal rep. "Companies want to look inclusive, but real inclusion? It doesn't happen during press events. It happens when a candidate walks through the door and is treated with dignity, before anyone knows who's watching." The room was still. Then one of the executives, Carla Baines, leaned forward. "Miss Carson," she said quietly, "I won't defend what happened. But I do want to ask, if we offered you the chance to lead, would you take it?" Renee paused. Not because she was uncertain, but because the moment mattered. "I came here today looking for a fair shot," she said. "What I got instead was clarity. I don't want to work somewhere that has to think about seeing me. I'm not a risk. I'm a return." Julian's mouth quirked at the corner, just barely. Renee glanced his way. "We good?" He nodded once. "Always." As she walked out, she didn't look back. The hallway hadn't changed, but she had. And while Renee moved forward, the company was left staring at what had been exposed. The next morning, Bradford Keene's internal email system lit up like fireworks. Subject: Leadership realignment and organizational integrity. Employees clicked out of curiosity. What they found wasn't sugar-coated spin, it was a shift. Julian Mars, newly appointed CEO, introduced himself not as a figurehead, but a decision-maker. He listed changes, names, actions, no vague timelines, no padded statements. The hiring division would be reviewed. A third-party team would handle recruitment until trust was rebuilt. 2 senior leaders, Devin Marks and Elaine Beckman, were released, effective immediately. By midday, whispers were everywhere. What happened? Who messed up? The HR floor was a different place. Closed doors, lowered voices, the air tense with realization. Julian kept his office open. No hiding, no backpedaling. Change had begun, and this was only step 1. Around 3 p.m., Carla stepped into his office. "She turned us down," she said simply. Julian looked up. "Good." Carla tilted her head. "You're not disappointed? She deserves more than a cleanup offer. Let her build her own story." "She would have been great here," Carla said. "She still will be," Julian replied. "Just not here." Across town, Renee sat in a small cafe, laptop open, fingers moving steadily over the keyboard. 2 days earlier, she'd already made her decision. She wasn't going back. After the way she was treated, she walked away, unburdened. Julian hadn't tried to convince her. He hadn't needed to. All he'd asked was, "What do you want?" And Renee had answered, with action. She'd filed her LLC that morning. The name, True North Strategies. A consultancy for brand development rooted in equity and truth, focused on telling the stories that got overlooked. Julian had grinned when she told him. The barista set a fresh cup of coffee beside her. "On the house," she said softly. "My aunt told me what happened. Said you were incredible." Renee smiled, nodded her thanks. Said nothing. Outside the window, the light shifted, late afternoon gold filtering through. She wasn't rebuilding. She was creating. That evening back at home, she moved through the kitchen preparing tea. The scent of rosemary and lemon drifted through the air. Behind her, ice clinked in a glass. Julian leaned against the fridge. "When I suggested that interview, I wasn't testing you," he said. I know, Renee replied. You were testing them. He chuckled. Didn't expect them to fall that fast. Cameras were rolling. That's because you still expect better, she said, dropping lemon slices into the pot. The citrus hissed. They saw what they wanted, she continued. They always do, that's the problem. People look through you, then call it clarity. Julian rested a hand on her back. You didn't blink, even in that room. Still doesn't mean silent, she murmured. They stood there in the warmth of quiet. They offered you the role, didn't they? He asked finally. They did, she said, turning off the stove. And I told them I already had a better one lined up. He smiled. You name it? True North, she said. Clean, bold, mine. He accepted the mug of tea she handed him. You think it'll matter? One person walking away? Renee took a sip. More than any headline. Real change doesn't start in press rooms. It starts when someone stops making excuses for the way things are. She looked out the window for a moment. Ever notice how the same people who teach us patience are the ones who hope we'll stay quiet? Julian didn't reply. He knew she wasn't looking for an answer. The doorbell rang. At the front door stood Carla, envelope in hand. Didn't want to email this, she said. It's a formal acknowledgement. A written apology. Signed by the board. Renee didn't take the envelope. Carla cleared her throat. It doesn't fix it, but we want you to know. We see it now. Renee met her eyes. That's a start. But remember, respect doesn't live in an envelope. Carla nodded. They're not afraid of you, she said. They're afraid of finally being seen. Renee closed the door gently. Back in the kitchen, Julian was scrolling through messages. Someone from Sandwell Partners reached out, he said. Asked if you're open for consulting. Renee smiled. Tell them I don't play games anymore, just results. They sat in the quiet. This wasn't about revenge. It never had been. It was about being seen and staying steady when the world tries to erase you. She didn't yell, didn't demand. She walked out, and then she built her own door. If this story stirred something in you, pass it on. Somewhere out there, someone is still waiting for a seat at the table. They deserve more than silence. And maybe, just maybe, they'll